He was invisible, a widowed janitor, pushing his mop down empty halls, raising his little girl with nothing but faith and grit. But one night, when the world wasn't watching, he picked up a marker and solved an impossible equation. The next morning, whispers spread across campus. Who was this man, a genius in disguise, or a fraud who stepped out of line? But as his formula catches fire, powerful forces close in. They don't want the truth revealed. They don't want him to rise. He was told to just mop. But what if the discovery inside his mind could change everything and cost him everything? Will a single dad's hidden brilliance finally shine? Or will the world silence him before he's heard? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The first rays of dawn hadn't yet touched the horizon when Sam Harper's alarm clock buzzed softly. He reached over and silenced it quickly, not wanting to wake Lila in the next room of their small apartment. The springs of his worn mattress creaked as he sat up, running a hand through his graying hair. His janitor's uniform hung pressed and ready on the back of his bedroom door. Sam pulled it on with careful movements, each button done with precision. The name tag reading Sam H. was slightly faded, but still clearly visible. He'd learned long ago that taking pride in his appearance, even in work clothes, mattered. In the tiny kitchen, Sam moved quietly, pulling out eggs and bread for breakfast. The familiar routine brought comfort. Crack 2 eggs into the pan, drop 2 pieces of bread in the toaster. The sound of sizzling eggs filled the quiet morning air. "Lila, honey," he called softly down the hallway. "Time to get up." A sleepy mumble came from her room, followed by the pad of small feet on carpet. Lila appeared in the doorway, her dark hair tousled from sleep, still in her favorite star-patterned pajamas. "Morning, Daddy," she yawned, climbing onto one of the mismatched kitchen chairs. Sam set a plate of eggs and toast in front of her, brushing her hair back from her face. "Don't forget to pack your lunch today. I put the sandwich stuff on the bottom shelf." Lila nodded, taking a bite of toast. "I won't forget like yesterday, promise." While she ate, Sam packed his own simple lunch, a peanut butter sandwich, an apple, and a bag of chips. The same lunch he packed every day, but it was enough. After breakfast, Lila dressed for school while Sam washed the dishes. When she emerged in jeans and her favorite purple sweater, he helped her pack her lunch, turkey sandwich, carrot sticks, and cookies he'd baked over the weekend. "Got everything?" Sam asked as they headed for the door. "Homework? Library book?" Lila patted her backpack. "All here. Can we listen to the oldies station on the way?" Sam smiled. "Sure thing, sweetie." Their old sedan started with a familiar rattle. As they drove through the quiet streets, Lila sang along to "Build Me Up, Buttercup," making Sam chuckle. These morning drives were precious to him, just him and his daughter, sharing songs and stories before the day pulled them in different directions. At Lila's school, Sam pulled up to the drop-off lane. "Have a good day, honey. Learn lots." "You too, Daddy." Lila leaned over to kiss his cheek. "Love you." He watched until she disappeared inside the building, then headed across town to the university. The morning traffic was picking up, but Sam knew all the back routes. He pulled into the staff parking lot just as the sky was beginning to lighten. Inside the science building, Sam collected his cleaning cart from the supply closet. The hallways were still quiet, but that would change soon. He started with the bathrooms, then moved on to mopping the floors and emptying trash bins. As the morning wore on, students began flooding the halls. They flowed around Sam like water around a rock, barely glancing his way. He pressed himself against the wall when large groups passed, his mop held close. Fragments of their conversations drifted past, complaints about assignments, weekend plans, relationship drama. Professors hurried by in their suits and blazers, clutching coffee cups and briefcases. Some nodded vaguely in his direction, but most looked right through him. Sam had grown used to being invisible. Sometimes it was almost peaceful, like being a ghost watching the world go by. The day passed in its usual routine, cleaning, fixing, maintaining. Sam took his lunch break in the quiet of his supply closet, eating his sandwich and reading a paperback mystery novel he'd picked up at the library. When evening came, he collected Lila from after-school care and drove them home. She chatted about her day while he prepared a simple dinner of spaghetti and meatballs. "Mrs. Martinez said my story about the brave knight was really creative," Lila said, twirling pasta on her fork. "But I got stuck on the math again. Fractions are hard." "Well, we can look at that after dinner," Sam offered, watching her face brighten. Once the dishes were done, they settled at the kitchen table with Lila's math homework. Sam pulled his chair close to hers, examining the worksheet covered in fraction problems. "Okay, let's think about this one," he said, pointing to a particularly troublesome question. "If you have 3/4 of a pizza, and you want to share it equally with 2 friends, how much does each person get?" Lila's forehead wrinkled in concentration. "I don't know. The numbers get all mixed up in my head. Here, let me show you something." Sam grabbed a piece of paper and drew a circle, dividing it into quarters. "See, we start with 3/4. Now, we need to split that into 3 equal parts." His hands moved surely across the paper, drawing clear lines and writing numbers. He explained each step carefully, watching understanding dawn in Lila's eyes. "So each person gets 1/4, she asked. "That's right," Sam smiled. "See how it works? When we divide fractions, we're really just splitting things into equal shares." They worked through several more problems together, Sam drawing diagrams and explaining concepts in simple terms. His natural gift for teaching emerged as he broke down complex ideas into manageable pieces. Lila's pencil flew across her paper as she solved the last problem. "I get it now. You make it so easy to understand, Daddy." She looked up at him with shining eyes. "You're the smartest man I know." Sam's heart squeezed in his chest. He smiled sadly, gathering up the homework papers. "Time for bed, sweetheart." In her room, he tucked the blankets around her, smoothing them carefully. "Sweet dreams, honey." "Night, Daddy," Lila murmured, already drifting off to sleep. Sam stood in her doorway for a moment, watching her peaceful face in the soft glow of her nightlight. His daughter's words echoed in his mind, "The smartest man I know." And he felt that familiar ache of what might have been, what could still be, if only. He quietly pulled her door almost closed, leaving it open just a crack, the way she liked it. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead in the empty math lecture hall as Sam Harper pushed his mop across the scuffed linoleum floor. The familiar smell of pine cleaner filled the air, and the rhythmic swishing of the mop head against the floor echoed in the silent room. This late-night cleaning routine had become second nature to him over the past few years. He paused to wipe the sweat from his forehead with the sleeve of his gray uniform. The basement classroom always felt stuffy, especially during these humid autumn nights. Row after row of empty seats stretched up toward the back of the room, their wooden surfaces gleaming from his earlier dusting. As he worked his way toward the front of the lecture hall, his eyes drifted to the large whiteboard that covered most of the wall. Numbers, symbols, and half-erased equations created a maze of mathematical notation. Professor Chen must have been working on something complicated with his advanced calculus class. Sam's mop slowed to a stop. There, in the center of the board, was an unfinished problem. Multiple attempts at a solution had been crossed out, leaving frustrated marks across the white surface. He recognized it as a particularly tricky differential equation, the kind he used to love solving back when he taught high school math. The memory of his old classroom hit him like a physical ache. He could almost hear the scratch of chalk, the excited murmurs of students working through problems, the satisfaction in their voices when something finally clicked. Setting his mop against the wall, Sam moved closer to the board. His fingers twitched as he read through the attempted solutions. There was an elegant way to approach this. He could see it clearly in his mind, like a familiar path through a forest. "You shouldn't," he whispered to himself, but his hand was already reaching for the black dry erase marker in the metal tray. The weight of it felt right in his grip, like greeting an old friend. Sam glanced over his shoulder at the empty room, his heart beating faster. He was supposed to be cleaning, not solving math problems. What would people think if they caught the janitor writing on the professor's boards? But the equation called to him like a puzzle begging to be solved. With slightly trembling fingers, he carefully erased one section of the work, clearing space for a fresh attempt. The squeak of the eraser seemed impossibly loud in the quiet room. Taking a deep breath, Sam uncapped the marker. The familiar scent of it brought back a flood of memories, standing at the front of his old classroom, explaining concepts with enthusiasm, watching understanding dawn on his students' faces. Before everything changed. Before Sarah. He pushed the painful thoughts aside and focused on the problem at hand. His handwriting was neat and precise as he began working through the solution, each step flowing naturally from the last. The numbers and symbols danced across the board under his sure hand, forming patterns that made perfect sense to him. Time seemed to stop as he worked, lost in the pure logic of mathematics. This was the language he had always felt most comfortable speaking, where everything had an answer if you just knew how to look for it. His marker moved faster now, confidence growing with each line. Finally, he wrote the last part of the solution with a flourish, drawing a neat box around the answer. Stepping back, Sam blinked as if coming out of a trance. The elegant proof stretched across the board, clear and irrefutable. For a moment, pride warmed his chest as he admired his work. Then reality crashed back in. What had he done? He wasn't supposed to be solving equations. He was the janitor, nothing more. The thought made his cheeks burn with shame. Panic seized him as he heard distant footsteps in the hallway. Grabbing the eraser, Sam quickly began wiping away his work, his movements frantic but thorough. The pristine solution disappeared under his hand, becoming nothing more than ghostly smudges on the white surface. He hesitated at the final corner, where the crucial insight that made the whole solution work was written in his careful script. Something made him pause, his hand hovering over those last few symbols. After a moment's internal struggle, he let them remain, a tiny fragment of his true self, hidden in plain sight. The footsteps grew louder, then faded as they passed the classroom door. Sam's heart was still racing as he returned the marker to its tray. He gathered his mop and bucket with shaking hands, the water sloshing against the plastic sides. At the doorway, he paused for one last look at the mostly blank board, his eyes drawn to that small corner of equations he'd left visible. Then he flicked off the lights, plunging the room into darkness, and pulled the door shut behind him. Early morning sunlight filtered through the dusty windows of the math lecture hall, casting long shadows across the empty seats. Ethan Cole hurried down the steps, his messenger bag bouncing against his hip, hoping to review his notes before the morning's graduate seminar. He always preferred the quiet of the early hours to organize his thoughts. The young grad student dropped his bag on the front desk and pulled out his laptop. As he waited for it to boot up, his eyes wandered to the whiteboard. Something caught his attention, a small section of mathematical notation tucked away in the corner. The handwriting was different from Professor Chen's usual scrawl, neater and more precise. Ethan moved closer, adjusting his glasses. His eyes widened as he studied the elegant solution. The formula showed a creative approach he'd never seen before, solving a problem that had stumped the entire class yesterday. His heart began to race with academic excitement. The sound of dress shoes clicking against the floor made him turn. Professor Richard Caldwell strode into the lecture hall, his tailored suit as impeccable as always. "Professor!" Ethan called out, unable to contain his enthusiasm. "You need to see this!" Caldwell paused, his leather briefcase held loosely in one hand. "What is it, Mr. Cole?" His tone carried its usual mix of boredom and mild irritation. "This formula, sir." Ethan pointed to the corner of the board. "It's brilliant. Look at how it approaches the problem from yesterday." The professor's shoes squeaked against the freshly mopped floor as he approached. He glanced at the board and let out a short laugh. "And why exactly should I be interested in random scribblings?" "But sir, it's not random." Ethan's words tumbled out quickly. "Whoever wrote this found an entirely new way to solve the equation. They used a variation of the Hamilton-Jacobi approach, but with a twist I've never seen before. Caldwell's expression remained skeptical, but he set down his briefcase and moved closer to the board. His eyes narrowed as he studied the notation. The amused smile slowly faded from his face. "When was this written?" he demanded, his voice sharp. "I don't know, sir. It must have been after yesterday's class." Ethan shifted nervously, sensing the change in the professor's demeanor. "The only person I saw in here when I left was the janitor cleaning up." "The janitor?" Caldwell's laugh was harsh. "Don't be ridiculous. This level of mathematical insight requires years of advanced training." He turned back to the board, his finger tracing the elegant sequence of numbers and symbols. But Ethan noticed how the professor's hands had tightened into fists, how his jaw clenched as he examined the formula more closely. The solution was undeniably elegant, and, more importantly, correct. "It's unexpected," Caldwell admitted finally, his voice tight. "The approach is unorthodox, but—" he trailed off, continuing to stare at the board. "Should we try to find out who wrote it?" Ethan asked. "Maybe they could help with the department's research on—" "No," Caldwell cut him off sharply. Then, moderating his tone, he added, "At least not yet. We need to verify this work first. Make sure it's not some sort of fluke." Ethan nodded, though he couldn't help feeling disappointed. The solution was clearly groundbreaking. Why wouldn't they want to find its author immediately? "Mr. Cole," Caldwell said, his voice carefully controlled, "I want you to keep an eye on this classroom. Note anyone who comes in outside of regular class hours. And don't mention this to anyone else just yet." "Yes, sir," Ethan replied. "But what about the janitor? Should we ask?" "The janitor?" Caldwell's lip curled slightly. "Mr. Cole, please use your common sense. No janitor could have produced this level of mathematical reasoning. It must have been one of our colleagues or perhaps a visiting professor." The professor pulled out his phone and took several photos of the formula. "We'll investigate this quietly," he said, emphasizing the last word. "No need to create unnecessary excitement until we know what we're dealing with." Ethan watched as Caldwell gathered his briefcase and straightened his tie. The professor's usual air of superiority seemed somehow more forced than usual, as if the mysterious formula had shaken his confidence. "Of course, Professor," Ethan said, but he couldn't help glancing at the elegant equation again. Something about this didn't feel right. Why were they being so secretive about a mathematical breakthrough? And why was Professor Caldwell so quick to dismiss the possibility that someone unexpected might have written it? The morning sun had climbed higher now, illuminating the whole classroom. Students would be arriving soon for the first class of the day. Ethan returned to his laptop, but his mind kept wandering back to the formula and its mysterious author. Whoever had written it clearly possessed a brilliant mathematical mind, even if they didn't match Professor Caldwell's expectations of what a mathematician should look like. The afternoon sun warmed Sam's worn pickup truck as he waited outside Mayfield Elementary School. He drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, a small smile playing on his lips as he watched the flood of children pour out of the building's double doors. His eyes searched the crowd until he spotted Lila's familiar blue backpack with its collection of cartoon pins. Lila's face lit up when she saw him. She raced across the schoolyard, her dark braids bouncing with each step. Sam's heart swelled. No matter how tough his day had been, seeing his daughter's smile made everything worthwhile. "Daddy!" Lila yanked open the passenger door and scrambled inside. "Guess what happened in math class today?" "What happened, sweetheart?" Sam asked, putting the truck in gear. Lila dug through her backpack and pulled out a math test, waving it triumphantly. "I got an A. Mrs. Peterson said my fraction work was perfect." She beamed at him. "It's because you explained it so well last night. You made it make sense." Sam felt a warmth spread through his chest. "That's wonderful, honey. I'm so proud of you." He reached over to squeeze her shoulder. "See? I told you fractions weren't so scary once you understood them." "You're the best teacher ever, Daddy," Lila declared, carefully tucking the test back into her folder. Sam's smile faltered slightly. "I used to be, maybe," he said softly, more to himself than to Lila. They drove to the university where Sam had his evening shift. Lila always came with him, doing her homework in the empty classrooms while he worked. It was their routine, born of necessity but turned into something special between them. As Sam pushed his cleaning cart down the math building's hallway, Lila skipping ahead to scout out her favorite classroom, he heard quick footsteps behind him. "Mr. Harper? Excuse me, Mr. Harper?" Sam turned to see a young man hurrying toward him, slightly out of breath. He recognized him as one of the graduate students, the quiet one who always smiled and said hello, unlike most others who looked right through him. "Yes?" Sam asked, suddenly nervous. Had he done something wrong? "I'm Ethan Cole," the young man said, pushing his glasses up his nose. "I was wondering if I could ask you something." He glanced around the empty hallway, then lowered his voice. "It's about the equation that was on the board in room 204 this morning." Sam's stomach dropped. He'd been careless, leaving even that small part visible. "Oh, I'm sorry about that," he said quickly. "I know I shouldn't touch the boards. It won't happen again." Ethan's eyes widened. "So it was you? You solved that equation?" Sam shifted uncomfortably, his hands tightening on the cart handle. I saw it wasn't finished, and I knew how to complete it. It was just for fun, really. I'm sorry if I caused any trouble." "Trouble?" Ethan laughed in disbelief. "Mr. Harper, that solution was brilliant. Professor Caldwell and I spent hours trying to figure out who could have written it. We never imagined." He trailed off, looking embarrassed. "Never imagined the janitor could do math?" Sam finished quietly, without bitterness. Ethan's face reddened. "I'm sorry, that's not what I meant. That wasn't just any equation. It was a complex theoretical problem that stumped some of our best minds. Your solution was elegant, innovative even. Where did you learn advanced mathematics?" Before Sam could answer, Lila came bouncing back down the hallway. "Daddy, I found the perfect spot to do my homework." She stopped short when she saw Ethan moving closer to her father's side. "This is my daughter, Lila," Sam said, grateful for the interruption. "Lila, this is Mr. Cole." "Nice to meet you," Lila said politely, though she kept one hand on her father's cart. "You too," Ethan smiled warmly. He turned back to Sam. "Mr. Harper, would you consider talking with Professor Caldwell? He'd be very interested in your approach to the problem." Sam shook his head. "I appreciate the thought, but I'm just the janitor. I shouldn't have written on the board in the first place." "But Daddy," Lila protested, "you're so good at math. You helped me get an A today." "That's different, sweetheart," Sam said gently. "This is college-level stuff." "Which you solved brilliantly," Ethan added. "Please think about it, Mr. Harper. This could be an opportunity." "I need to finish my rounds," Sam said firmly. "Come on, Lila." Ethan looked disappointed but nodded. "Of course, but if you change your mind." He pulled out a business card and offered it to Sam, who hesitated before taking it. Later that evening, Sam and Lila sat at their small kitchen table, sharing a simple dinner of spaghetti and meatballs. Sam was quiet, pushing his food around his plate, lost in thought. "Daddy?" Lila's voice pulled him back to the present. "Why don't you want to talk to the professor?" Sam set down his fork. "It's complicated, sweetie." "Is it because you're scared?" Lila asked with the directness only children possess. "Maybe a little," Sam admitted. "It's been a long time since I did anything but clean floors." "But you're so smart. And you love math. I see how happy you get when you're helping me with it." Lila reached across the table and placed her small hand over his. "Remember what Pastor Mike said on Sunday? About how God has a plan for everyone?" Sam smiled despite himself. "I remember." "Well," Lila said, her face serious, "maybe this is God's way of telling you your time isn't over." Her eyes shone with complete faith in him. "Maybe he wants you to do more than just be a janitor." The morning sunlight streamed through the university's towering windows, casting long shadows across the freshly mopped floors. Sam pushed his cleaning cart down the mathematics department hallway, noticing something different in the air. Faculty members who normally ignored him were stealing glances his way. Some whispered behind their hands as he passed. Professor Caldwell's voice echoed from the department head's office, the door left slightly ajar. "It's unprecedented, Dr. Matthews. A janitor? Solving Berkman's sequential theory problem?" Sam's hands tightened on his cart handle. He quickened his pace, trying to appear busy with his work. "Sam Harper?" Dr. Matthews' deep voice carried through the hall. "Could you step in here for a moment?" Sam's stomach dropped. He left his cart by the wall and entered the office, his work boots feeling heavy on the polished floor. Dr. Matthews, a distinguished man with silver hair, sat behind his desk. Professor Caldwell stood by the window, arms crossed. "Mr. Harper," Dr. Matthews said, gesturing to a chair. "Professor Caldwell tells me you solved the equation on the board in room 204. Sam shifted uncomfortably. I just noticed a different way to look at it, sir." "A different way?" Caldwell's tone was sharp. "That problem has stumped mathematicians for months." Before Sam could respond, a knock at the door interrupted them. A woman with a press badge and a cameraman peered in. "I'm Sarah Chen from Channel 8 News. We heard about your mathematical discovery, Mr. Harper." Sam's face flushed. "Discovery? No, The janitor genius," Sarah said, her eyes bright with interest. "That's what they're calling you. Would you mind if we did a quick interview?" "I don't think," Sam started. "Of course he'll do it," Dr. Matthews cut in, standing up. "This is excellent publicity for the university." The next hour passed in a blur. Sarah positioned Sam in front of the math department's logo wall, asking questions about his background, his work at the university, and the equation. Sam answered hesitantly, downplaying his role, but Sarah seemed determined to craft a story of hidden brilliance. Throughout the day, Sam tried to focus on his work, but it proved impossible. Students pointed and whispered. Some professors approached him with complex equations scribbled on notepads, while others watched from a distance with skeptical expressions. "Hey, Harper," called Dr. Wilson, a young physics professor. "Is it true you were a math teacher before?" Sam nodded, wringing out his mop. "High school? Yes. Years ago." "Why'd you stop?" another faculty member asked. Sam's throat tightened. He couldn't bring himself to explain about losing his wife, about how teaching had become impossible afterward. "Life changes," he said simply, and wheeled his cart away. By afternoon, more reporters had shown up. Sam ducked into supply closets and took alternate routes through the building to avoid them. He overheard snippets of conversations. Probably just copied it from somewhere. Might be some kind of savant. "Makes no sense. A janitor solving." Professor Caldwell's voice cut through the gossip. "We shouldn't jump to conclusions. The solution needs to be properly verified." At 5 o'clock, Sam clocked out early for the first time in years. He couldn't take any more attention. He picked up Lila from the after-school program and drove home to their small apartment. "Can we watch the news, Daddy?" Lila asked as they ate their microwave dinners. "Please, I want to see you on TV." Sam couldn't refuse her excited face. They settled on their worn couch, and sure enough, there he was on the screen. The camera zoomed in on his weathered hands holding a marker, then panned to his face as he explained the solution. And in an unexpected twist, Sarah Chen's voice narrated, "A university janitor may have solved what mathematicians have been struggling with for months." Sam Harper, a former high school teacher, discovered a revolutionary approach to Berkman's sequential theory. Lila bounced on the couch, clapping. "That's my daddy. I told you you're smart." But Sam felt his chest tighten as he watched himself on screen. The camera caught his nervous gestures, his hesitant speech. He looked out of place in his gray uniform among the suits and blazers of academia. "Breaking boundaries in mathematics," Sarah's voice continued. "This humble custodian might just be—" Sam reached for the remote and turned off the TV. "Why'd you do that?" Lila protested. "It wasn't finished." "That's enough for tonight, sweetheart." Sam stood up, gathering their plates. "Time to start your homework." But as he washed the dishes, his hands trembling slightly in the soapy water, Sam couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in his stomach. He'd spent years trying to stay invisible, finding peace in his quiet life with Lila. Now, with all these eyes on him, all these expectations, he felt exposed, vulnerable. Through the kitchen window, he noticed a news van parked across the street. The sight made his heart race. He quickly pulled the curtains closed, wondering how they'd found his address. "Daddy?" Lila's voice came from behind him. "Are you okay?" Sam turned, forcing a smile for his daughter. "I'm fine, sweetheart, just a busy day." But as he helped Lila with her homework, his mind kept drifting to the equation, to the cameras, to Professor Caldwell's skeptical face. He'd stepped out of the shadows, and now he wasn't sure how to step back in. Sam stood at the front of the packed lecture hall, his janitor's uniform stark against the backdrop of the pristine whiteboard. His weathered hands trembled slightly as he gripped the dry erase marker. The room buzzed with whispers from professors and graduate students who filled every seat, their eyes fixed on him with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Professor Caldwell sat in the front row, arms crossed, his expression a careful mask of professional interest. Next to him, Dr. Maya Ortiz leaned forward in her chair, her warm brown eyes encouraging. Well. Sam cleared his throat. The solution actually came to me while I was cleaning one night. He managed a small smile, and a few gentle chuckles rippled through the audience. I saw the problem, and it reminded me of something I used to teach my high school students, just more complex. His marker squeaked against the board as he began writing, his normally hesitant demeanor falling away as numbers and symbols flowed from his hand. The whispers died down, replaced by the soft scratching of pens as people began taking notes. "See? If you look at it this way," Sam continued, his voice growing steadier, "the sequence follows a pattern that's similar to what we see in nature, like how a pine cone grows, or how leaves arrange themselves on a stem." He drew a simple spiral on the board. "My daughter and I were actually talking about this while planting her science project." Dr. Ortiz nodded encouragingly, her face lighting up with understanding. "You're saying you approached it from an organic perspective rather than a purely theoretical one?" "Yes, ma'am." Sam's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Instead of trying to force the numbers into the traditional framework, I just let them show me where they wanted to go." Professor Caldwell's pen clicked sharply. "But where's your proof? Where's the rigorous mathematical foundation?" Sam turned back to the board, adding more equations with quiet confidence. "The proof is here, sir. It's just coming from a different direction than you might expect." His marker moved swiftly now, filling in gaps that others had missed. "When you look at it this way, the solution becomes almost obvious." The room fell silent as his work took shape. Even Professor Caldwell leaned forward, his frown deepening as he studied the elegant simplicity of Sam's approach. A young graduate student in the back raised her hand. "But how did you know to make that connection? It's brilliant." Sam's cheeks flushed. "I didn't know exactly, I just saw it. Like when you're looking at one of those magic eye pictures, and suddenly the hidden image appears." More hands shot up, and for the next hour, Sam answered questions with humble clarity, his love for mathematics shining through his soft-spoken responses. He drew examples from everyday life, the way water spirals down a drain, how birds flock in formation, the spacing of sunflower seeds. Complex theories became accessible through his simple, practical explanations. As the session wound down, Professor Caldwell stood abruptly. "Well, this has been interesting." His tone suggested otherwise. "Though I must point out that unconventional methods don't always stand up to academic scrutiny." He gathered his things and strode out, several other professors following in his wake. But many stayed, clustering around the board, discussing Sam's solution with growing excitement. Dr. Ortiz made her way through the crowd to Sam's side. "That was remarkable," she said quietly, her dark eyes twinkling. "You have a gift, Mr. Harper. Not just for mathematics, but for teaching it." Sam fidgeted with the marker in his hands. "Thank you, ma'am, but I'm just a janitor who—" "No." Dr. Ortiz's voice was firm but kind. "You're much more than that. I've watched countless brilliant minds try to crack this problem. But you didn't just solve it, you made it understandable. You've got something here, She glanced at the departing back of Professor Caldwell. "Don't let them push you aside." Sam looked down at his uniform, then back at the board covered in his work. "It's been so long since I've done anything like this. After my wife passed, I just couldn't." "Sometimes life takes unexpected turns," Dr. Ortiz said softly. "But maybe this is your chance to find your way back." Later that evening, Sam walked home under the glow of streetlights. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves. His steps were lighter than they had been in years, despite the long day. He thought about the way the students' eyes had lit up when they understood his explanations, how Dr. Ortiz had looked at him with respect rather than pity. For the first time since losing his teaching career, since losing Sarah, he felt a familiar warmth in his chest. It wasn't quite happiness, not yet, but it was something close to it, a spark of hope, small but bright, like a single star appearing in the darkening sky. The morning sun streamed through the math building's windows, casting long shadows across the freshly mopped floors. Sam pushed his cart down the quiet hallway, the wheels squeaking softly against the linoleum. The scent of lemon cleaner hung in the air as he worked, his movements careful and precise, just as they had been every day for the past 5 years. But something felt different now. Students who had once looked through him now offered small waves of recognition. A few professors even nodded in his direction. The attention made his neck prickle with discomfort. The sound of expensive shoes clicking against the floor made Sam look up from his work. 2 men in crisp business suits approached, their faces stern and purposeful. One was tall and lean, with steel-gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses. The other was shorter, broader, with a clean-shaven head that gleamed under the fluorescent lights. "Mr. Harper?" The taller man's voice was clipped, professional. "A word, please." Sam straightened up, suddenly conscious of his worn uniform and the mop still gripped in his hands. "Yes, sir." The men positioned themselves to block the hallway, their expensive suits a stark contrast to the industrial surroundings. The shorter man glanced at Sam's name tag with obvious disdain. "We understand you've been participating in some mathematical discussions lately," the taller man said, adjusting his glasses. "Writing formulas on boards, attending department meetings." Sam's throat tightened. "I was invited to—" "Let's be clear," the shorter man cut in, his voice low and firm. "You're the janitor. You mop floors, clean bathrooms, empty trash cans. That's your job." The words hit Sam like physical blows. He gripped the mop handle tighter, his knuckles whitening. "The university has a reputation to maintain," the taller man continued. "We can't have untrained personnel interfering with serious academic work. It's inappropriate." Sam found his voice, though it came out quieter than he intended. The solution was correct. Professor Caldwell confirmed it. The shorter man's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "A lucky guess, perhaps, but leave the formulas to actual scientists, people who've earned their credentials." "This isn't a movie, Mr. Harper," the taller man added, his tone softening to something almost paternal. "You can't just pick up a marker and suddenly become a mathematician. These problems require years of advanced training, multiple degrees." "Which you don't have," the shorter man finished. "Stick to what you know, what you're paid to do." They leaned in closer, their presence overwhelming in the narrow hallway. "Pursuing this path will only cause trouble," the taller man warned. "For everyone involved, do you understand?" Sam's chest felt tight, like someone was squeezing all the air out of him. He managed a small nod, unable to meet their eyes. "Good man," the shorter one said, patting Sam's shoulder with uncomfortable familiarity. "Keep up the good work with the floors. They're looking very clean." Their footsteps echoed down the hallway as they walked away, leaving Sam alone with his mop and cart. The lemon scent that had seemed fresh earlier now made his stomach turn. He mechanically finished his shift, barely registering the passing hours. That evening, Sam sat at the kitchen table with Lila, watching her devour the spaghetti he'd made for dinner. The small apartment felt both safer and more confining than usual. Outside their window, the setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, but Sam barely noticed the beauty. "And then Jenny said my drawing was the best in class," Lila chatted excitedly, twirling pasta around her fork. "Mrs. Peterson hung it right by the door. Everyone sees it when they come in." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Sam said, forcing a smile. He pushed his own barely touched dinner around his plate. Lila paused, her fork halfway to her mouth. "Daddy, are you okay?" "Of course," Sam said quickly. Too quickly. "Just tired from work." "Did something happen at the university?" Lila's eyes, so like her mother's, studied him with that uncanny perception she sometimes showed. "With the math problem?" Sam reached across the table to squeeze her hand. "Everything's fine, honey. Nothing for you to worry about." But as he watched his daughter finish her dinner, doubt gnawed at his insides. Maybe those men were right. Who was he to think he could step into that world of professors and theories? He was just a janitor. Had been for years now. The solution to that equation, it must have been a fluke, like they said. A lucky guess. His gaze drifted to the small cross hanging on their kitchen wall, then to the photo beside it, him and Lila's mother on their wedding day. What would she think of all this? Would she tell him to stay in his lane, keep his head down? Or would she? "Can you help me with my math homework after dinner?" Lila's voice pulled him back to the present. "We're starting decimals, and they're kind of tricky." "Sure, sweetie," Sam replied automatically, but inside, his certainty wavered. What right did he have to teach anyone about math? Maybe he should tell her to ask her teacher instead. The men's words echoed in his mind. Stick to what you know. But what did he know anymore? For a brief moment, he'd felt a spark of something. Purpose, maybe, or pride. Now that spark felt dangerous, foolish. He watched Lila gather her books from her backpack, her face bright with trust and expectation. She believed in him completely, without question. But, as he opened her math textbook, Sam wondered if they were right. If he was just a janitor reaching far beyond his place, destined to fail and embarrass not only himself, but his daughter too. The gentle whir of the apartment's old heater filled the silence as Sam sat in his worn armchair, his daughter's words from bedtime still echoing in his mind. "You're not just a janitor, Daddy. You're my hero." He smiled, remembering how she'd hugged him extra tight tonight, as if sensing his troubled spirit. His eyes drifted to the oak bookshelf in the corner, where a familiar leather-bound Bible sat. The spine was cracked and worn, its pages yellowed with age. Sam stood up and walked over, carefully lifting the precious book. As he opened it, a slip of paper fluttered to the floor. His heart caught in his throat. Sarah's handwriting. His late wife's neat, flowing script filled the small note he'd found tucked inside years ago. He picked it up with trembling fingers, though he knew the words by heart. "Don't bury your light." Sam sank back into his chair, the Bible heavy in his lap. Sarah had given him this Bible on their first anniversary, back when he was still teaching high school math. She'd always believed in him, even when he couldn't believe in himself. "Oh, Sarah," he whispered, running his fingers over the worn leather cover. "What would you say now?" A soft knock at the door startled him from his thoughts. Through the peephole, he saw Dr. Maya Ortiz standing in the dimly lit hallway, holding a stack of papers. "I hope it's not too late," she said when he opened the door. Her dark eyes were warm with concern. "I couldn't stop thinking about what happened today with those men." Sam gestured for her to come in, quickly tidying some of Lila's homework from the small dining table. "It's fine. Lila's asleep, but we can talk quietly." Maya set her papers down, her expression serious. "Sam, we can't let them intimidate you like this. What you did with that equation, it wasn't just clever, it was brilliant." "Maybe they're right," Sam said, his voice low. "Maybe I should just stick to mopping floors." Maya's eyes fell on the Bible in his armchair, the note still visible. "What's that?" Sam retrieved the note and handed it to her. "From my late wife. Sarah always pushed me to use my gifts." Maya read the note, then looked up at Sam with fierce determination. "She was right, and I'm not going to let you bury your light either." She pulled out the papers she'd brought, copies of mathematical journals, academic papers, and most importantly, Sam's original solution to the equation. "We can work on this together, after hours. I'll help you develop your ideas properly." "But those men?" Sam started. "Those men are afraid," Maya interrupted, her voice tight with conviction. "I've dealt with people like them my whole career. They're threatened by anyone who doesn't fit their narrow view of who belongs in academia." Sam looked at Sarah's note again, then at the papers Maya had spread across his table. The equations seemed to call to him, like old friends he'd abandoned years ago. "We'll need somewhere private to work," he said slowly. Maya's face lit up. "The old physics lab on the 3rd floor. Nobody uses it after 6. I have a key." And so began their nightly meetings. After Sam finished his evening rounds and Maya wrapped up her last class, they would meet in the dusty lab. Sam would bring his mop and bucket as cover, and Maya would carry her ever-present stack of papers. Night after night, they worked under the soft glow of desk lamps. Sam's natural intuition for numbers paired perfectly with Maya's rigorous academic background. She helped him understand the formal language of advanced mathematics, while he showed her new ways of looking at old problems. One night, as they puzzled over a particularly complex equation, Maya watched Sam work. His hands moved confidently across the chalkboard, chalk dust settling on his janitor's uniform. "You know what amazes me?" she said. "You see patterns that most PhDs miss. It's like you speak the language of numbers naturally." Sam stepped back from the board, surveying his work. "My wife used to say the same thing. She'd joke that I could solve everything except how to fold fitted sheets." Maya laughed softly, then grew serious. "Sam, what you're doing here, it's important. Not just for mathematics, but for every person who's ever been told they don't belong." Sam thought about the men in suits, their dismissive words. He thought about Sarah's note, about Lila's unwavering faith in him. He turned to Maya, chalk dust on his fingers and determination in his eyes. "If they want me to just mop," he said, "then I'll mop and solve the universe at the same time." The fluorescent lights hummed softly in the empty hallway as Sam finished mopping the last stretch of floor outside the math department. His watch showed 11:45 p.m. Most of the building was dark now, except for a thin line of light escaping from beneath Dr. Maya Ortiz's office door. Sam tucked his cleaning supplies into the maintenance closet and walked quietly down the corridor, his footsteps echoing in the silence. He knocked gently on Maya's door. 2 soft taps, their agreed-upon signal. "Come in," Maya called softly. Her office was cramped, barely bigger than a storage room. Bookshelves lined every wall, stuffed with worn textbooks and academic journals. A small desk lamp cast a warm glow over scattered papers and coffee cups. Maya had cleared a space on her cluttered desk, spreading out their work from previous nights. "I brought us some coffee," Sam said, placing a thermos on the edge of her desk. "Figured we might need it." Maya smiled gratefully, pushing her reading glasses up on her nose. "You're a lifesaver. These late nights are getting harder." Sam pulled up the room's only other chair, a wobbly wooden thing that creaked when he sat down. "Lila was already asleep when I left. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door is keeping an ear out." "How is she doing?" Maya asked, shuffling through their papers. "Good. Better than good, actually. She got another A in math today." Pride warmed Sam's voice. "She said it's because I explain things in a way that makes sense." Maya nodded, spreading out several sheets covered in Sam's neat handwriting. "That's exactly why we need to keep working on this. You have a gift for seeing connections others miss." They bent over the equations together, shoulders nearly touching in the cramped space. Sam's original solution had led them down an unexpected path, revealing implications neither had anticipated. "Look here," Maya said, pointing to a particular sequence. "The way you approach the energy conversion problem, it's completely novel. Traditional methods assume energy loss is inevitable, but your equation suggests a more efficient transfer," Sam finished, excitement building in his voice, "like water flowing through a better pipe instead of leaking out." Maya's eyes lit up. "Exactly. And if we can prove this mathematically, it could change how we handle energy systems," Sam said, scribbling rapidly on a fresh sheet of paper. "Power plants, engines, even small machines, anything that converts one type of energy to another." Hours slipped by as they worked, trading ideas back and forth. Coffee cups emptied and filled again. The pile of calculations grew. Outside, the moon crossed the sky, unnoticed. Around 3 a.m., Maya sat back, rubbing her tired eyes. "Sam, this is groundbreaking. But it's also dangerous." Sam looked up from his calculations. "Dangerous? Think about it. If this works, it could threaten a lot of established industries. No wonder those men tried to intimidate you." She gestured at their work. "This isn't just clever math. It's potentially world-changing." Sam sat quietly for a moment, letting the weight of her words sink in. The old janitor's uniform he still wore felt suddenly incongruous with the importance of what lay before them. "Maybe that's why God led me here," he said finally. "Sarah always said everything happens for a reason." Maya squeezed his arm gently. "We'll need to be careful. Document everything properly. Build an ironclad case before we go public." They worked for another hour, organizing their notes and securing copies in separate locations. The sky outside Maya's tiny window was beginning to lighten when Sam finally stood up. "I need to get home," he said, stretching his stiff back. "Lila will be waking up soon." Maya nodded, stifling a yawn. "Get some rest. We'll continue tomorrow night." Sam gathered his things quietly, tucking their most important notes into his worn backpack. The halls were still empty as he made his way out of the building. The first hints of dawn painted the eastern sky in pale gold. He walked quickly through the quiet streets, knowing every minute counted now. His apartment building came into view just as the first birds began their morning songs. Sam climbed the stairs quietly, unlocked his door, and slipped inside. 5 minutes later, his alarm clock went off. Time to wake Lila for school. The spring morning sun filtered through the university's tall windows, casting long shadows across the freshly mopped floors. Sam pushed his cart down the hallway, keeping his head down as whispers followed in his wake. A group of students huddled near the water fountain, their voices dropping to hushed tones as he passed. "That's him," one student whispered, not quite quietly enough. "The janitor who's working with Dr. Ortiz." Another student elbowed her friend. "I heard he solved Professor Caldwell's impossible equation." Sam's ears burned as he pretended not to hear them. He focused on his work, methodically cleaning each classroom as he had done for years. But things were different now. Every chalk mark he erased, every desktop he wiped clean, drew curious stares from passing students and faculty. In the mathematics building's main hall, a cluster of graduate students were arguing over coffee. "It's gotta be a fluke," a tall young man in glasses insisted. "No offense, but he's just a janitor." "But Dr. Ortiz believes in him," a young woman countered. "And she's brilliant, even if the department doesn't give her credit." "Yeah, well, maybe they deserve each other," someone snickered. "The cleaning guy and the diversity hire." Sam's grip tightened on his mop handle, but he kept his eyes on the floor. The words stung, but he'd learned long ago how to make himself invisible when needed. Later that morning, he passed Maya's office just as she was emerging, her arms full of papers. 2 male professors were walking by, speaking loudly enough to be heard. "Careful there, Maya," one called out with fake concern. "Wouldn't want to drop your groundbreaking research with the maintenance staff." "Perhaps she should stick to cleaning up the department's image instead," the other added with a smirk. Maya's chin lifted, her dark eyes flashing. "Funny," she replied coolly. "I thought real scientists cared more about results than resumes." Sam watched as she strode past them, her head high. But he caught the slight tremor in her hands as she clutched her papers closer. During his lunch break, Sam retreated to his usual quiet spot behind the science building. He unwrapped his simple sandwich, thinking about Maya's courage in the face of such dismissal. A shadow fell across his lunch, and he looked up to find 3 students standing there. "Mr. Harper?" one of them asked hesitantly. "We're in Dr. Ortiz's advanced physics seminar. We were wondering, could you explain how you approached that energy conversion problem?" Sam blinked in surprise. I just saw it differently, that's all." "Please?" another student pressed. "Dr. Ortiz said your solution was elegant." We'd love to understand your perspective." Before Sam knew it, his sandwich lay forgotten as he drew diagrams in the margins of their notebooks, explaining his intuitive understanding of the mathematical relationships. The student's eyes grew wide with comprehension. That's brilliant," one breathed. "Why hasn't anyone seen it this way before?" Word spread quickly. By afternoon, Sam noticed more students watching him with interest rather than derision. Some even smiled and waved. Others still rolled their eyes or whispered behind their hands, but something had shifted. In the faculty lounge, he overheard fragments of heated discussions as he emptied the trash bins. "It's making a mockery of our department," one professor insisted. "But what if he's actually onto something?" another argued. "Shouldn't we at least investigate? A janitor and that woman? Please, they're just seeking attention." Sam worked quietly, his face neutral, but his mind was racing. Each equation he and Maya explored revealed new possibilities, connections that even he hadn't fully grasped yet. But the weight of others' judgment pressed heavily on his shoulders. That evening, Sam walked through his apartment door to find Lila practically bouncing with excitement. She threw herself into his arms before he could even set down his keys. "Daddy, Daddy, you'll never guess what happened at school today." Sam hung up his jacket, smiling at her enthusiasm. "What happened, sweetheart?" "We had to tell the class about someone we admire, and I told everyone about you." Lila beamed. "I said my daddy is a genius who solved a super hard math problem that even college professors couldn't figure out." Sam's heart squeezed. He sat down heavily on their worn couch, pulling Lila close. "What? What did your teacher say?" She looked it up on her phone, right there in class. She showed everyone the newspaper article about you and Dr. Ortiz. Lila's eyes shone. "Everyone thought it was so cool. Jeremy said his dad read about you too." Sam stroked his daughter's hair, feeling a complicated mix of emotions wash over him. Pride at her faith in him warred with fear of disappointing her, of being exposed as a fraud despite Maya's assurances that his insights were valuable. "And guess what else?" Lila continued, oblivious to his internal struggle. "Sarah wants to know if you can help with her math homework too, just like you helped me. I told her you're the best teacher ever." "Honey," Sam said gently, "I'm not really a teacher anymore. I'm just—" "You're not just anything," Lila interrupted fiercely. "You're my dad and you're smart, and you help people understand things. That's what matters." Sam pulled her close, his throat tight. Here was his daughter, defending him with the same quiet determination he'd seen in Maya earlier that day. But, as Lila chattered on about her friend's reactions, he couldn't shake the memory of those threatening men in the hallway, or the sneering professors, or all the ways this could go wrong. "What should we have for dinner?" he asked finally, standing up and trying to push his worries aside. "Can we have breakfast for dinner?" Lila asked hopefully. "Your special pancakes?" As Sam moved around their small kitchen, mixing batter while Lila set the table, he felt the familiar tug between two worlds. In one, he was just a quiet janitor raising his daughter alone, safe in their simple routine. In the other, he was stepping into the light, risking ridicule, and worse, but maybe, just maybe, making a difference in the world. Lila's proud smile as she helped flip the pancakes made his heart swell and ache all at once. He wondered what his late wife would say about all this, about their daughter bragging to her class about her father, the genius. Would she be proud, worried, both? "Daddy?" Lila's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "Are you okay? The pancake's getting too brown." "I'm fine, sweetheart," he said, quickly flipping the slightly overdone pancake onto a plate. "Just thinking. About math stuff? About how lucky I am to have you believing in me." The Saturday morning sun painted golden streaks across the cracked pavement of Jerry's Diner, a small family restaurant on the outskirts of town. Sam's old station wagon pulled into the nearly empty parking lot, its familiar rattle making Lila giggle in the back seat. Maya stood waiting by the entrance, her usual professional attire replaced by comfortable jeans and a casual sweater. "Dr. Ortiz!" Lila called out, bouncing out of the car before Sam could fully stop. Did you know this place has the best chocolate chip pancakes in the whole world? Maya's face lit up with a warm smile. Is that so? Then I guess I know exactly what I'm ordering. Sam watched the easy interaction between them, his heart lifting at how natural it felt. The bell above the door chimed as they entered, and the smell of coffee and maple syrup wrapped around them like a warm blanket. A waitress with gray-streaked hair led them to a worn vinyl booth by the window. "Well, if it isn't my favorite customer," she said, winking at Lila. "The usual for you, sweetie?" "Yes, please, and extra whipped cream?" Lila batted her eyelashes hopefully. Sam raised an eyebrow. "It's not even 9 in the morning, kiddo." "Come on, Dad," Lila pleaded. "It's Saturday." Maya leaned forward, conspirationally. "You know, some studies suggest that starting the day with something sweet actually improves cognitive function." "Oh, really?" Sam couldn't help but smile. "And where exactly was this research published?" "The International Journal of Making Kids Happy," Maya replied with a straight face, making Lila burst into giggles. The waitress took their orders: chocolate chip pancakes for Lila, blueberry for Maya, and plain buttermilk for Sam. As they waited, sunlight streamed through the slightly dusty windows, catching the sugar crystals on the table like tiny diamonds. "This is nice," Maya said softly, stirring her coffee. "Usually on Saturday mornings I'm grading papers in my office." "Don't you ever take a break?" Lila asked, arranging the creamer cups into a pyramid. A shadow crossed Maya's face. "In my position I can't afford to. Some of my colleagues are just waiting for me to slip up." Sam noticed the tension in her shoulders. "What do you mean? What do you mean?" Maya was quiet for a moment, watching the steam rise from her cup. "When you're a woman in academia, especially a Latina woman, you have to work twice as hard to get half the recognition. Every achievement is questioned, every mistake magnified. Like when Professor Reynolds said your research presentation was surprisingly well done?" Sam recalled the backhanded compliment he'd overheard in the hallway. "Exactly." Maya's fingers tightened around her mug. "Or when they assume I got my position because of diversity quotas, not because I earned it. My parents came here with nothing, worked cleaning houses and doing construction. They sacrificed everything so I could get an education." Their pancakes arrived, steam rising from the plates. Lila immediately dove into hers, creating a masterpiece of whipped cream and syrup. "I understand," Sam said quietly. "About having to prove yourself. After Sarah, my wife, passed away, it felt like everyone was watching, waiting to see if I could handle being a single dad." Lila looked up from her pancakes, syrup on her chin. "But you're the best dad ever." Maya reached across the table and squeezed Sam's hand briefly. "How long ago did you lose her?" 6 years. Sam's voice grew soft. "Cancer. It happened so fast. One day we were planning summer vacation, the next." He trailed off, cutting his pancakes into precise squares. "I was teaching high school math then. After she died, I just couldn't. The classroom reminded me too much of her." She was an English teacher at the same school. "That's why you became a janitor?" Maya asked gently. Sam nodded. "Needed something quiet, something where I could just be invisible for a while." "But you're not invisible, Daddy," Lila protested, reaching for his hand. "You're special. Dr. Ortiz sees it too, right?" Maya smiled warmly. "Your daughter's pretty wise, Sam." The conversation shifted to lighter topics: Lila's upcoming science fair project, Maya's disaster attempt at making tamales like her grandmother's, Sam's stories about the strangest things he'd found while cleaning classrooms. Their laughter mixed with the clinking of forks and the soft murmur of other diners. Time slipped by easily, and soon their plates were empty, save for traces of syrup and a few forgotten chocolate chips. The morning sun had climbed higher, filling the diner with warm light. "We should do this again," Maya said as they walked to their cars. "Maybe next time I'll take you both to this little Mexican place my parents love. The tortillas are homemade." "Yes, please," Lila bounced excitedly. "Can we, Dad?" "Sounds perfect," Sam agreed, watching as Lila gave Maya a spontaneous hug before climbing into the car. As they drove home, Sam glanced in the rearview mirror at Lila, who was humming contentedly while reading a book. His eyes drifted to Maya's car, following them for a few blocks before turning off toward her apartment. Something had shifted during their breakfast together, something warm and unexpected. Maya had somehow woven herself into their lives, bringing color to places that had been gray for so long. She understood his struggles, respected his journey, and most importantly, she saw him, not just the janitor, but the man, the father, the mathematician he'd hidden away. The realization settled in his chest like a gentle weight. Maya had become more than just an ally in his academic journey. She had become family. Dean Wallace's polished shoes clicked against the linoleum floor as he made his way down the mathematics building hallway, his silver hair neatly combed and his suit perfectly pressed. He found Sam exactly where he expected, mopping the floor near the lecture halls, just as he had done every weekday for the past 7 years. "Mr. Harper," the dean called out, his voice echoing in the empty corridor. "A moment of your time, please." Sam straightened up, his weathered hands gripping the mop handle. "Yes, sir?" He noticed Maya hurrying down the hallway to join them, her face flushed with anticipation. The dean cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "It has come to my attention that your mathematical contributions have gained significant attention in the academic community." He glanced at the papers in his hands. "Dr. Ortiz has been quite vocal about your collaborative work." Maya stepped forward, her chin held high. "Sam's insights have revolutionized our approach to energy conversion, Dean Wallace. The equations he developed?" "Yes, yes," the dean interrupted, waving his hand. "That's precisely why I'm here." He turned back to Sam. "The International Conference on Applied Mathematics has extended an invitation for you and Dr. Ortiz to present your findings next month in Chicago." Sam's eyes widened, and the mop handle nearly slipped from his grasp. "Sir, I don't think I—" "This is exactly what we've been working toward," Maya cut in, placing a reassuring hand on Sam's arm. "Our research deserves to be heard." Dean Wallace adjusted his tie. "While this situation is unusual, the university cannot ignore the attention your work has received. Therefore, we will provide the necessary support for your presentation." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "However, I trust you understand the institution's reputation is at stake." Sam nodded slowly, his throat tight. "I understand, sir." After the dean left, Sam slumped against the wall, his face pale. "Maya, I can't do this. Standing in front of all those people, trying to explain complex mathematics. I'm just a janitor." Maya's dark eyes flashed with determination. "No, you're not just anything. You're brilliant, Sam Harper, and it's time the world knew it." She pulled out a folder from her bag, spreading papers across a nearby desk. "Look at what we've accomplished. Your intuitive understanding of these concepts is remarkable. But what if I freeze up? What if I make a fool of myself?" Sam's hands trembled as he looked at their work. "Then we'll handle it together," Maya assured him. "We have a month to prepare, and I'll be right there beside you." She gathered the papers, her voice softening. "Sam, you've been hiding your light for too long. Remember what you told me about Sarah?" Sam's eyes misted at the mention of his late wife. "She always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." "And she was right," Maya said firmly. "Just like Lila believes in you now." That evening, Sam sat on the edge of Lila's bed, telling her about the conference invitation. Her face lit up with pure joy. "Daddy, that's amazing," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around his neck. "You're going to show everyone how smart you are, just like you show me." Sam hugged her back, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. "I'm scared, sweetheart. What if I'm not good enough?" Lila pulled back, her small hands framing his face. "But you are good enough. You're the best daddy in the world, and the smartest person I know." Her eyes, so like her mother's, shone with absolute conviction. "And Dr. Ortiz will be there to help you, right?" "That's right." Sam smiled, tucking her under her favorite purple blanket. "You know what?" Lila whispered, snuggling close. "Mom would be proud of you." Sam's heart caught in his throat as he held his daughter close, her simple words washing over him like a healing balm. In that moment, he could almost feel Sarah's presence, her unwavering faith in him echoing through their daughter's voice. "Thank you, sweetheart," he managed to say, kissing her forehead. "Time for sleep now." As Lila drifted off, Sam remained seated on her bed, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest. His mind wandered to the upcoming conference, to the equations that had somehow transformed his life, and to the two women, Maya and Lila, who believed in him with such fierce conviction. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to believe in himself too. The empty classroom felt different at night. Moonlight filtered through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the rows of empty desks. Sam stood at the front, his janitor's uniform traded for a simple button-down shirt and khakis. His hands trembled slightly as he held his notes. "The applications of this energy conversion formula," he began, his voice shaky, "could revolutionize how we think about sustainable power." He paused, looking down at his shoes. "Keep going, Daddy," Lila called from her spot in the front row, her legs swinging beneath the desk. She wore her favorite pink pajamas, having insisted on staying up late to watch her father practice. Maya sat beside Lila, her reading glasses perched on her nose as she made notes. "That's a good opening, Sam, but remember to look up more, connect with your audience." Sam nodded, taking a deep breath. He lifted his gaze, focusing on Lila's encouraging smile. "The breakthrough came when we realized that the traditional approach ignored a crucial variable." He walked to the whiteboard and began writing equations, his hand moving with surprising confidence. "See how the energy transfer coefficient here," he pointed to a section of the formula, "actually fluctuates based on environmental factors?" His voice grew stronger as he explained the mathematics he loved. Lila leaned over to Maya and whispered, "I don't understand the math, but I love watching him teach." Maya squeezed the little girl's hand. "Your father has a gift. He makes complex ideas feel simple and beautiful." Sam continued his presentation, growing more animated as he delved deeper into the subject. His earlier nervousness melted away as he lost himself in the elegant dance of numbers and theories. For these precious moments, he wasn't just a janitor. He was a mathematician sharing his passion. "Now, if we apply this principle to real-world scenarios," he stopped mid-sentence, noticing Lila stifling a yawn. "I'm sorry, sweetie." "It's getting late." "No, keep going," Lila protested, sitting up straighter. "I want to see the whole thing." Maya checked her watch. "It's nearly 9:30. Maybe we should wrap up for tonight?" Sam rubbed his neck, suddenly aware of how tired he felt. "You're right. Lila needs her sleep, and I still have the east wing to clean." "Just one more time?" Lila pleaded, her eyes wide. "The part about the breakthrough? You explain it so well." Sam couldn't help but smile. He looked at Maya, who nodded encouragingly. "Okay, one more time. But then it's straight to bed for you, young lady." He returned to the board, erasing his previous work with smooth, practiced strokes. As he began again, his confidence had grown noticeably. His voice carried clearly through the room, steady and sure. The traditional approach to energy conversion has always assumed. He launched into his explanation, this time with natural enthusiasm. His hands moved expressively as he spoke, drawing invisible patterns in the air. Maya watched him with pride, remembering how uncertain he'd been just a week ago. She jotted down a few more notes but found herself writing fewer criticisms and more words of praise. Lila bounced in her seat, clapping at all the right moments. Her presence was like a warm light, filling the room with unconditional support and love. "That was perfect, Daddy," she exclaimed when he finished. "The conference people will love you?" Sam set down his marker and walked over to his daughter, pulling her into a tight hug. "Thank you, sunshine. Having you here makes everything easier." Maya gathered her papers, smiling at the tender moment between father and daughter. "Sam, you've come so far in just a few days. The transformation is remarkable." "I couldn't have done it without either of you," Sam said softly, including Maya in his grateful look. "You've both believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself." The three of them worked together to straighten up the classroom. Lila insisted on helping, carefully arranging the chairs while Maya and Sam organized their notes. Their movements were comfortable and familiar, like a well-practiced dance. "We make a good team," Lila declared, beaming at both adults. "That we do, sweetheart," Maya agreed, gathering her belongings. "Same time tomorrow?" Sam nodded, helping Lila into her jacket. "I'll walk you to your car first." They made their way through the quiet hallways, their footsteps echoing in the empty building. Lila held both their hands, skipping between them as they walked. At Maya's car, they said their goodnights. Lila gave Maya a tight hug, whispering something that made the professor smile warmly. After making sure Maya drove away safely, Sam and Lila headed back inside so he could finish his cleaning duties. Lila curled up with her homework in his cleaning cart's basket, determined to stay with him until he finished. When the last floor was mopped and the cleaning supplies stored away, Sam led a sleepy Lila out of the building. The night was clear and cool, with stars twinkling brightly overhead. He paused for a moment, looking up at the vast expanse of sky. "Lord," he whispered softly, his daughter's hand warm in his, "give me strength." Sam stared up at the gleaming glass towers of the Regency Hotel, his worn duffel bag clutched in one hand. The morning sun reflected off the windows, making him squint. He felt small against the backdrop of the bustling city, with its endless stream of taxis and well-dressed professionals hurrying past. "This place is huge," Lila exclaimed, her eyes wide with wonder. She spun around in circles on the sidewalk, taking in the towering buildings that seemed to touch the clouds. Her pink backpack bounced with each turn. Maya stepped out of the taxi after paying the driver, wheeling her sensible leather suitcase behind her. She wore a crisp navy blazer and carried herself with professional confidence, though Sam noticed how she squared her shoulders, a gesture he'd come to recognize as her armor against the world. "Wait till you see inside," Maya said with a warm smile. "They have a fountain in the lobby." The automatic doors swished open, releasing a blast of cool air. The lobby stretched before them like something from a movie, all marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and plush furniture. A massive fountain dominated the center, water cascading down multiple tiers. "Wow," Sam breathed, suddenly very conscious of his department store clothes and scuffed shoes. At the check-in desk, the clerk's eyes flickered between Maya's professional attire and Sam's modest appearance. "Are you here for the International Physics and Mathematics Conference?" she asked Maya directly. "Yes," Maya replied firmly. "Dr. Maya Ortiz and Mr. Samuel Harper. We're presenting tomorrow." The clerk's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly at Sam's name, but she maintained her professional demeanor as she handed over their keycards. Their rooms were on the 20th floor. Lila raced down the hallway, counting door numbers until she found theirs. "Look at this view!" she gasped, pressing her face against the window once inside. The city spread out below them like a giant puzzle of buildings and streets. Sam set down their bags, his stomach churning. Through the window, he could see the conference center connected to the hotel, a modern structure of steel and glass, where tomorrow he'd have to stand in front of hundreds of scientists and defend his work. "Let's get settled, and then head over to register," Maya suggested, checking her watch. "The welcome reception starts in 2 hours." The conference center lobby was packed with attendees when they arrived. Name tags were distributed, and Sam stared at his. Samuel Harper, independent researcher. No university affiliation, no fancy titles, just his name. Conversations in multiple languages filled the air as they made their way through the crowd. Sam noticed the sideways glances, the whispers behind hands. He caught fragments of conversations. "That's him, the janitor. Can't believe they're letting him present. Must be some kind of publicity stunt." Maya walked beside him, her head high, deliberately ignoring the murmurs. Lila held his hand tightly, sensing his discomfort, but offering silent support. They passed a group of distinguished-looking men in expensive suits, their name tags displaying prestigious universities. One of them, a white-haired man with wire-rimmed glasses, looked Sam up and down with unconcealed skepticism. "Mr. Harper," the man said, his tone cool. I understand you'll be presenting on energy conversion tomorrow. Rather unusual background for such complex work, wouldn't you say? Before Sam could respond, Maya stepped forward. Dr. Werner? She said smoothly. I've read your recent paper on quantum mechanics. Fascinating work. Though I noticed a few inconsistencies in the methodology section that Mr. Harper helped me identify. Dr. Werner's face tightened, and he turned away without another word. Maya gave Sam a subtle wink. They made their way through the exhibition hall, where dozens of research posters lined the walls. Scientists gathered in small groups, gesturing animatedly as they discussed their work. Sam felt like an imposter in their midst, despite knowing his calculations backward and forward. A young graduate student approached them, her eyes bright with curiosity. Mr. Harper, I read the abstract of your presentation. The applications for renewable energy are incredible. Would you mind explaining how you developed the initial concept? Sam began to explain, his natural teaching instinct taking over. Soon, a small crowd gathered, listening intently. He noticed Maya beaming with pride from the edge of the group. But as more people joined, he also noticed the skeptical faces in the back. One man interrupted, his voice sharp, "And where exactly did you receive your formal training in theoretical physics?" The warmth of the moment evaporated. Sam felt his confidence shrinking back into itself. Sometimes the best insights come from unexpected places, Maya interjected firmly. Newton wasn't a formally trained physicist when he began his work. Later that evening, Sam sat alone in his hotel room, his laptop open to his presentation slides. Lila was asleep in the adjoining room, and the city lights twinkled beyond the window. He clicked through the slides again and again, though he knew every word by heart. The equations that had seemed so clear when he was alone at night in his classroom now seemed to mock him. What right did he have to be here, among the world's leading minds? He was just a janitor who got lucky with one problem. His hands shook slightly as he reached for his water glass. Tomorrow, he would have to stand in front of hundreds of people who had spent their entire lives studying these concepts. People with PhDs, with decades of research experience, with publications and prestige. The presentation slides glowed on the screen. Novel approaches to energy conversion. A mathematical framework for sustainable power generation. His name beneath the title looked strange and out of place. Sam stared at it until the letters began to blur, his heart pounding with the weight of tomorrow's challenge. The massive auditorium buzzed with hundreds of voices, a sea of prestigious scientists and researchers filling nearly every seat. Sam stood in the wings of the stage, his heart hammering against his ribs. He tugged at his borrowed tie, a gift from the department store where Maya had insisted on taking him shopping. The fabric felt like it was choking him. 2 minutes, Mr. Harper, a young event coordinator whispered, clipboard in hand. Sam nodded, unable to find his voice. His weathered hands trembled as he gripped his note cards. The PowerPoint slides Maya had helped him prepare glowed on the giant screen behind the podium, waiting. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, remembering all those late nights practicing in empty classrooms. And now, the conference moderator's voice boomed through the speakers. We welcome Samuel Harper, whose groundbreaking work in energy conversion theory has caused quite a stir in the academic community. Sam's legs felt like lead as he forced himself to walk onto the stage. The bright lights temporarily blinded him, and the crowd seemed to stretch endlessly into the darkness. His throat went dry. For a terrifying moment, he couldn't remember a single word of his presentation. Then he saw them. 5 rows back, right in the center, sat Lila and Maya. His daughter wore her favorite yellow dress and waved enthusiastically, her smile bright enough to light up the whole room. Maya sat beside her, giving him a confident nod. The sight of them anchored him, steadied his racing heart. Good morning, Sam began, his voice stronger than he expected. I'm Sam Harper, and until recently, my main job was keeping these halls clean. A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd. But God works in mysterious ways, and sometimes the most unexpected paths lead us to profound truths. As he spoke, his nervousness began to fade. The equations and concepts that had consumed his late-night studies flowed naturally. He explained his theories with the same patient clarity he used when helping Lila with her homework, breaking down complex ideas into digestible pieces. "You see," he continued, pointing to a diagram on the screen, "the traditional approach overlooks a crucial relationship between these variables." His markers squeaked against the clear presentation board as he added annotations. "When we adjust our perspective, just slightly, a whole new possibility emerges." The silence in the auditorium grew deeper. People who had been checking their phones or whispering to neighbors now leaned forward in their seats. Sam could see renowned professors scribbling furiously in their notebooks. "The implications for renewable energy are significant," he explained, his voice growing more confident with each word. "By applying this principle, we could potentially increase efficiency by 40% while reducing waste energy by half." He caught Maya's eye again. She was beaming with pride, and he remembered her words from their practice sessions. "Just tell the truth as you see it, Sam. That's all anyone can ask." As he reached his conclusion, laying out the final equations that tied everything together, the room had grown so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Sam's hands had stopped shaking. For the first time in years, he felt completely certain of who he was and what he had to offer. "Thank you for your attention," he finished simply, stepping back from the podium. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, like a wave-building force, the applause began. It started in the front rows and swept through the audience, growing louder and louder until it filled the entire auditorium. People were standing, faces animated with excitement and wonder. Reporters who had been sitting in the press section surged forward, their cameras flashing. Questions flew at him from all directions. "Mr. Harper, how did you develop this theory? Will you be publishing a paper? What are the practical applications? Are you planning to leave your job as a janitor?" Sam felt overwhelmed by the attention, but he managed to answer a few questions with his characteristic humility. "The math has always been there," he explained. "I just looked at it from a different angle. Sometimes the best view comes from ground level." Finally breaking free from the crowd, Sam made his way to the hallway outside the auditorium. His legs felt wobbly with relief and lingering adrenaline. Maya and Lila were waiting for him there, both practically bouncing with excitement. Lila launched herself into his arms, and he caught her in a tight embrace, lifting her off her feet. "Daddy, you were amazing," she squealed. "Everyone loved it." Maya stepped forward, her eyes shining with tears of joy. Sam pulled her into the hug as well, the three of them holding each other close. "We did it," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "We really did it." In that moment, all the late nights, all the doubts, all the whispered mockery and warnings faded away. He wasn't just the janitor anymore. He was Sam Harper, father, teacher, and mathematician, and he had finally found the courage to let his light shine. The applause was still echoing through the auditorium when they appeared. Three men in dark suits strode purposefully down the center aisle, their polished shoes clicking against the floor. Behind them, two more figures emerged from the side doors, moving with the same calculated precision. Sam was mid-sentence, explaining the practical applications of his energy conversion formula when the lead agent reached the stage. The man's face was a mask of cold authority as he stepped up to the podium. "This presentation is terminated," he announced into the microphone, his voice carrying a weight that silenced the confused murmurs rippling through the crowd. Maya shot to her feet from her front row seat. "You can't do this! This is a scientific conference!" The agent didn't even glance her way. Instead, he nodded to his colleagues, who were already moving toward Sam's laptop and presentation materials. Sam watched helplessly as they began gathering his papers, including the worn notebook where he'd worked out his calculations during late-night cleaning shifts. "What's happening?" Sam's voice cracked as he stepped back from the podium. "Those are my personal notes." "Mr. Harper." One of the suits gripped his elbow firmly. "Please come with us." From the audience, Lila's frightened voice cut through the tension. "Daddy!" Sam's heart clenched at the fear in his daughter's voice. "It's okay, sweetheart," he called out, trying to keep his tone steady. "Maya, please stay with her." The crowd had erupted into confused chatter. Phones were raised, recording the scene, but 2 more officials appeared, instructing everyone to delete their footage. The original 3 agents guided, or rather, pushed, Sam through a side door and into a stark conference room. The door clicked shut behind them with finality. Sam found himself facing 5 stern faces across a polished table. His confiscated materials were spread out between them, his life's work reduced to evidence of some unnamed crime. "Mr. Harper," the lead agent began, his voice as smooth as steel, "your equation poses a significant threat to established energy infrastructure. Do you understand what would happen if this information became public?" Sam's mouth felt dry. "It could help people. Clean energy, reduced costs. It could devastate entire industries," another cut in sharply. "Millions of jobs, billions in investments, the global economy itself." "But the benefits are irrelevant," the first agent concluded. "This research ends here. You will sign a non-disclosure agreement. You will not discuss these findings with anyone. You will return to your janitorial duties and forget this temporary deviation." Sam's hands clenched into fists under the table. "And if I refuse?" The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Finally, one of the men in the back spoke, his voice soft but menacing. "You're a single father, Mr. Harper. Your daughter needs stability. It would be unfortunate if your employment situation became complicated." The threat hit Sam like a physical blow. He thought of Lila, of their small apartment, of the carefully budgeted grocery lists and second-hand clothes. His shoulders sagged. "The papers, please," the lead agent said, sliding a thick document across the table. With trembling fingers, Sam signed where indicated. Each scratch of the pen felt like a betrayal. Of his dreams, of his late wife's faith in him, of everything he'd worked for. When it was done, they kept his notes, his calculations, everything. They left him with nothing but a copy of the non-disclosure agreement and the weight of their warnings. The hallway outside was empty when they finally released him. The conference had been cleared out, the excitement of earlier replaced by an eerie quiet. Sam's footsteps echoed as he made his way back to the hotel elevator, each step feeling heavier than the last. His room key card shook in his hand as he tried to unlock the door. Inside, Lila and Maya jumped up from where they'd been waiting on the edge of the bed. Lila ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. "Daddy, are you okay? Those mean men wouldn't let us come with you." Sam tried to smile for her, but his face wouldn't cooperate. His legs gave out, and he sank into the room's armchair, his head falling into his hands. Everything he'd accomplished, everything he'd finally dared to dream, gone in an instant. Maya's voice was gentle but fierce. "Sam, we can fight this. We can go to the media, get legal help." He shook his head, unable to look at her. "They made it very clear what would happen if I tried. But your work could change the world. I can't risk it." His voice broke. "I can't risk Lila." The room fell silent, except for the distant hum of the air conditioning. Sam felt the hot sting of tears behind his closed eyes, years of suppressed hopes crumbling away. He was back to being just the janitor, invisible, voiceless. A small hand slipped into his. He opened his eyes to find Lila looking up at him, her face full of that pure, unshakable faith that only children can maintain in the face of adult cruelty. "Don't give up, Daddy," she whispered, squeezing his hand. Her words were simple but filled with all the love and courage he felt slipping away from himself. The drive home from the conference felt endless. Sam gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, as streetlights flashed across his face in steady rhythm. In the rearview mirror, he could see Lila had finally fallen asleep, her head resting against the window. The events of the day played over and over in his mind like a broken record. The triumph of his presentation, the sudden appearance of the officials, the cold steel in their voices as they confiscated everything he'd worked for. When they finally pulled into their apartment complex parking lot, Sam sat motionless in the car, engine off, staring straight ahead. The familiar sight of their building brought no comfort. Mrs. Rodriguez from apartment 3B was watering her window boxes, and Mr. Chen was walking his dog. Normal evening activities that now felt surreal. "Daddy?" Lila's sleepy voice came from the back seat. "Are we home?" Sam nodded, unable to find words. He helped Lila with her backpack and walked toward their building, head down, shoulders hunched. Mrs. Rodriguez waved cheerfully, but Sam pretended not to see her. He couldn't bear the thought of small talk, of explaining what had happened. Inside their apartment, the silence felt heavy. Sam mechanically went through the motions of heating up leftover pasta for Lila's dinner, though he couldn't stomach the thought of eating himself. The phone rang twice, Maya's number showing on the caller ID both times, but Sam let it go to voicemail. "You should talk to Dr. Maya," Lila said quietly, pushing her pasta around her plate. "She's your friend. She wants to help." Sam shook his head, turning to wash dishes that were already clean. "Not now, sweetheart. I need some time." Later that evening, Sam sat in their small living room, surrounded by darkness except for the glow of a street lamp filtering through the window. The silence was broken only by the soft sounds of Lila's bedtime routine. Water running in the bathroom, the creak of her bedroom door. Instead of their usual good-night hug, Lila lingered in the hallway. "Daddy, can I pray with you?" Sam's throat tightened. "Not tonight, honey. You go ahead and pray in your room." Through the thin walls, he could hear her voice, small but clear. "Dear God, please help my daddy remember how special he is. Please help him find his light again. And please help Dr. Maya know how to make him feel better. Amen." Sam pressed his palms against his eyes, fighting back tears. The next morning, Maya was waiting in the university parking lot when he arrived for work. She stood next to her car, 2 coffee cups in hand, her face etched with concern. Sam parked 3 spaces away and grabbed his work cart, pretending not to see her. "Sam," she called out, hurrying toward him. "Please, just talk to me for a minute." He kept walking, pushing his cart toward the building's service entrance. Maya followed, her footsteps quick behind him. "They can't do this to you," she insisted. "We can fight this. I've already reached out to some colleagues who might be able to help." "Stop." Sam's voice was barely above a whisper. He still wouldn't meet her eyes. "Just stop. Please." Maya reached for his arm, but he pulled away. "Sam, you can't let them win like this. Your work is too important." "My work?" A bitter laugh escaped him. "I'm a janitor, Maya. That's all I ever should have been. I was stupid to think." He shook his head, unable to finish the sentence. "That's not true, and you know it." Maya's voice was fierce with conviction. "You're brilliant, Sam. What they did was wrong, and we can't do anything." The words burst out of him, echoing in the empty hallway. "Don't you understand? They took everything, my notes, my calculations, years of work. It's gone, and if I try again—" He trailed off, remembering the thinly veiled threats about his daughter's future. Maya stood there, coffee growing cold in her hands, as Sam unlocked the supply closet and began mechanically preparing his cleaning supplies for the day. She tried once more. "At least let me help." "I have floors to mop." Sam cut her off, his voice flat. He grabbed his mop and bucket, then paused. "Thank you for everything, Maya. But it's over." Throughout the day, Sam moved through the hallways like a ghost, keeping his eyes fixed on the floors he cleaned. Students who had once begun smiling at him, asking him questions about his work, now whispered as he passed. He could feel their pitying glances, their confusion about what had happened at the conference. When evening came, Sam sat alone in the janitor's office, staring at his mop bucket in the dim light. The same bucket he'd used for years, its familiar dents and scratches now seeming to mock him. This was his place. Not on stage at scientific conferences, not solving complex equations, not dreaming of changing the world. The fluorescent light above him flickered, casting strange shadows on the wall. In one corner sat the whiteboard where it had all started. That first equation he couldn't resist solving. Now it was blank, wiped clean like all his hopes. His fingers itched to pick up a marker, to let the numbers flow through him again. But he clenched his hands into fists instead. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made him tense, but they passed by without stopping. Sam realized he was holding his breath, half expecting more men in dark suits to appear. The fear of what they might do, the weight of their threats, pressed down on him like a physical force. He reached out and touched the worn wooden handle of his mop, feeling its familiar smoothness. This was safe. This was allowed. This was all he was meant to be. The invisible man who cleaned up after others, who didn't ask questions or solve equations or dream too big. In the bucket's reflection, distorted by the rippling water, Sam barely recognized himself. The spark that had begun to shine in his eyes these past months was gone, replaced by a dull acceptance. He had dared to reach for something more, to believe in himself, the way Lila believed in him, the way Maya had encouraged him to believe. And now, the bucket stood there, patient and uncomplaining, ready for another day of simple work. Sam stared at it, feeling the full weight of his defeat settle over him like a heavy blanket. In the silence of the empty building, with only the hum of distant machinery for company, he let himself accept what he now believed was an undeniable truth. He had aimed too high, and the fall had broken something inside him that he wasn't sure could ever be fixed. Dawn crept through the blinds of their modest apartment, painting stripes of golden light across the worn carpet. Sam lay in bed, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, dreading another day. The alarm hadn't gone off yet. He'd barely slept anyway. The weight of yesterday's defeat pressed heavy on his chest, making even breathing feel like work. In the kitchen, small sounds broke the morning silence. A cabinet door creaking, the gentle clink of plates, the shuffle of sock-covered feet on linoleum. Sam's brow furrowed. Lila should still be asleep. "Daddy?" Her voice carried down the short hallway. "Are you awake?" Sam closed his eyes, mustering the energy to respond. "Yes, sweetheart." "Can you come to the kitchen, please?" Something in her tone, a mix of excitement and nervousness, made him swing his legs over the side of the bed. He pulled on his worn terry cloth robe, the one Lila had given him last Christmas, and padded down the hallway. The sight that greeted him stopped him in his tracks. The small kitchen table was set with their mismatched plates, the ones they'd collected from yard sales over the years. In the center sat a slightly lopsided stack of pancakes, steam still rising from them. A glass of orange juice waited at his place, and beside it a single dandelion in a water glass served as a makeshift centerpiece. Lila stood by the stove, wearing the junior chef apron they'd found at the thrift store. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and there was a smudge of flour on her cheek. Pride and worry battled in her expression as she watched his reaction. You made breakfast?" Sam's voice cracked slightly. "Mrs. Rodriguez helped me with the stove part," Lila admitted, "but I mixed everything myself, and I only dropped one eggshell in the batter, but I fished it out." She gestured to the table. "Sit down, Daddy." Sam sank into his chair, overwhelmed by the simple gesture of love before him. The pancakes were a little burnt on one side and suspiciously pale on the other, but to him they looked perfect. "I used Mom's recipe," Lila said softly, sliding into her own chair. "The one from her cookbook with all the notes in the margins." Sam's throat tightened. That old cookbook was one of their most precious possessions, full of Sarah's handwritten adjustments and little drawings in the margins. He picked up his fork, cutting into the stack of pancakes. "They're wonderful, sweetheart," he managed, after taking a bite. And they were, despite being slightly crispy on the outside, they were fluffy inside, just like Sarah used to make them. Lila watched him eat for a moment, then squared her small shoulders. "Daddy, I need to tell you something important." Sam set down his fork, recognizing the serious tone in his daughter's voice, the same one Sarah used to use when she had something meaningful to say. "Those men at the conference, they're wrong about you," Lila said firmly. "And all those people who look right through you at the university, they're wrong too." Her eyes, so like her mother's, held his gaze steadily. "Even if the whole world says you're just a janitor, you're my hero." The simple truth in her words cut through the fog of defeat that had surrounded him since the conference. Sam felt something stir in his chest, Not hope exactly, not yet, but a warmth that began to thaw the frozen places inside him. "When I tell my friends about you," Lila continued, picking at her pancake, "I don't just tell them about the math stuff. I tell them how you always know when I'm sad, even when I try to hide it. How you work so hard to give us a good life. How you taught me that being kind is more important than being important." Sam reached across the table and took her small hand in his. It still amazed him sometimes how such a tiny person could carry such wisdom in her heart. "And, you know what else?" Lila squeezed his hand. "Mom always said you were special. She told me once that God gave you a gift, and someday the world would see it. Maybe those men took away your papers, but they can't take away what's in here." She tapped her temple with her free hand. Sam felt tears welling up in his eyes. He stood up, walked around the table, and pulled Lila into a tight hug. She wrapped her arms around his neck, and he could smell the pancake batter in her hair. "I love you so much, baby girl," he whispered. "I love you too, Daddy," she murmured back. "And I'm proud of you, no matter what." Sam held her close, feeling the steady beat of her heart against his chest. In that moment, he realized something profound. His worth wasn't measured by academic acclaim or scientific recognition. It was measured in moments like these, in the love of his daughter, in the simple courage to keep trying. "Maybe that's enough," he whispered, more to himself than to Lila. Then, after a pause, he added, "But maybe it can be more." The streetlights cast long shadows across the empty university parking lot as Sam pulled in just after midnight. His old pickup truck's engine ticked as it cooled in the darkness. For a moment he sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, gathering his courage. Maya's office light glowed from the third floor, a tiny beacon of hope in the darkness. Sam shouldered his cleaning cart through the familiar hallways, his footsteps echoing in the empty building. The sound of his wheels squeaking against the linoleum felt somehow comforting, like an old friend keeping him company. He'd walked these halls countless times, invisible to most, but tonight was different. Outside Maya's office, he paused to straighten his janitor's uniform, a habit born from years of trying to look professional despite his job title. He knocked softly, 3 quick taps. "Come in, Sam," Maya called quietly. Her office was cramped but welcoming, with books stacked everywhere and a small desk lamp casting a warm glow. Maya sat at her computer, her reading glasses perched on her nose, dark circles under her eyes, suggesting she hadn't been sleeping well either. "I brought coffee," Sam said, pulling 2 paper cups from his cart. "Figured we might need it." Maya's tired face brightened. "You're a lifesaver." She took a long sip and gestured to the chair beside her desk. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about not letting them win." Sam settled into the chair, his joints creaking almost as much as the ancient furniture. "I can't just let them bury this, Maya. It's not right. This formula could help so many people." "I agree." Maya turned to her computer and began typing. "I've been doing some research. There are ways to share scientific discoveries anonymously online. Places where information can't be easily traced or taken down." Sam leaned forward, watching as she navigated through various websites. "Won't they know it was us?" "They might suspect, but they won't be able to prove it." Maya's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Once it's out there, it belongs to everyone. No one can own it anymore." Sam rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "Like throwing seeds to the wind?" "Exactly," Maya smiled. "Let them try to catch the wind." They worked methodically through the night, organizing the formula and their research into clear, understandable documents. Sam's natural teaching ability shone through as he suggested ways to explain complex concepts simply. Maya added rigorous mathematical proofs to satisfy academic scrutiny. "Remember that night you first solved the equation?" Maya asked, pausing to stretch her tired shoulders. Sam nodded, smiling despite his nervousness. "Never thought wiping a whiteboard would change my life." "You changed mine too, you know," Maya said softly. "Before you came along, I was just the token Latina professor they kept around to look diverse. Now," she gestured at their work on the screen, "now we're making history." Sam felt his throat tighten with emotion. You believed in me when no one else did, except Lila. That daughter of yours has wisdom beyond her years. Maya turned back to the computer. Speaking of which, we should finish this before she wakes up for school. They worked steadily, double-checking every detail. Sam's hands trembled slightly as he reviewed the final documents. This was it. Their chance to ensure their discovery wouldn't be buried by corporate interests or government pressure. Maya created secure accounts on several scientific forums and academic sharing platforms. Once we upload it to these sites, it'll spread faster than they can contain it. Sam watched the progress bars slowly fill as the files uploaded. What do you think they'll do when they find out? They'll be angry, Maya said matter-of-factly. But they can't unring this bell. The formula will be out there, free for anyone to use and build upon. The computer showed all files ready to share. Maya's finger hovered over the Enter key. She looked at Sam. Are you ready? Sam took a deep breath, thinking of Lila's words about not giving up, about being her hero. He thought about his late wife's note in the Bible. Don't bury your light. He nodded firmly. Together? Maya asked. Together, Sam agreed, placing his hand next to hers on the keyboard. They pressed the Enter key simultaneously, watching as the screen confirmed their uploads. Document after document began appearing on various platforms across the internet. Their formula, their gift to the world, was now free. Sam and Maya sat in silence, holding their breath, as the final confirmation messages appeared on screen. What they had just done couldn't be undone. Their discovery was now part of humanity's shared knowledge, forever beyond the reach of those who would suppress it. The morning sun peeked through Sam's modest apartment windows, casting warm rays across his worn kitchen table. He sat there, clutching his coffee mug with trembling hands, his eyes fixed on his laptop screen. The view counter on their anonymous post kept climbing. 10, 0 downloads. 50, 0, 100, 0. His heart raced with each refresh. Maya burst through his front door without knocking, her usually neat hair disheveled, holding her tablet like a precious treasure. Sam? Have you seen this? Her eyes sparkled with excitement, a far cry from her typically composed professor demeanor. I can't believe it, Sam whispered, shaking his head. They're actually reading it. Scientists from, he squinted at the screen, Cambridge, MIT, Tokyo University. Maya pulled up a chair beside him, her shoulder brushing against his as she leaned in to look at his screen. Look at these comments from the physics forums. They're calling it revolutionary. She scrolled through pages of technical discussions, equations, and excited responses. They're already building on our work, Sam. They're taking it places we never imagined. The TV hummed quietly in the background until a familiar phrase caught their attention. Maya grabbed the remote and turned up the volume. Breaking news, the anchor announced, her expression serious. The scientific community is buzzing this morning over what many are calling a groundbreaking discovery in energy conversion theory. The formula, released anonymously online last night, has been downloaded hundreds of thousands of times and is being verified by leading institutions worldwide. Sam's coffee went cold, forgotten, as they watched report after report. Different channels, different countries, all talking about their formula. Some showed clips from the conference where he'd been shut down, but now the tone was different, questioning why someone had tried to suppress such important research. Look at this email, Maya said, her voice catching. It's from Dr. Chen at Berkeley. She says this could be the key to solving our clean energy crisis. She grabbed Sam's hand impulsively. We did it. They can't stop it now. Sam's phone started ringing, reporters probably, trying to confirm rumors about the janitor whose work had been silenced. He let it go to voicemail. This moment belonged to him and Maya, watching their shared dream take flight. A notification popped up on Maya's tablet. The corporate press releases are starting, she said with a hint of satisfaction. Listen to this. Energy giant NextPower acknowledges the potential impact of recent theoretical developments and commits to exploring new directions in sustainable energy research. She laughed. Translation? They're scrambling. "They can't put the genie back in the bottle," Sam said softly, still amazed at their success. The sound of a key in the lock made them both turn. Lila burst in, her backpack still on, waving her phone. "Daddy, Maya, everyone at school is talking about it. Even Mrs. Peterson in science class mentioned the formula." She dropped her backpack and pulled up a social media feed. "Look, it's trending everywhere." Lila's excitement was contagious. She twirled around the living room, her school uniform skirt swishing as she spun. "Daddy did it! Daddy did it!" she chanted, her face glowing with pure joy and pride. Maya wiped tears from her eyes, watching the young girl celebrate. "Yes, he did," she said softly. "Yes, we did." News alerts kept pinging on their devices. Universities were scheduling symposiums to discuss the implications. Research labs were requesting grants to explore applications. Young students were posting videos explaining the formula to their followers. "A janitor's discovery could revolutionize how we think about energy conversion," one headline declared. Another read, "Anonymous formula release sparks global scientific collaboration." Lila continued her victory dance around the living room, her ponytail bouncing with each spin. "Daddy did it! Daddy did it!" Her voice carried all the pride and faith she'd always had in her father, now justified for the whole world to see. Sam watched his daughter dance, her joy pure and complete. In her eyes, he saw what he'd always been, not just a janitor, but a man of worth and dignity. Maya squeezed his hand, and he squeezed back, grateful for the friend who had helped him find his courage. The formula was out there now, free for anyone to use, to build upon, to improve. Just as knowledge should be, just as God's gifts were meant to be shared. The truth had found its way into the light, just as Lila had always believed it would. "Daddy did it! Daddy did it!" Lila's chant filled their small apartment with joy, a victory song for a battle won not with force, but with faith, courage, and the simple power of truth set free. Corporate logos flashed across the TV screen as CEOs and spokespeople took turns denouncing Sam's work. The news ticker scrolled with aggressive headlines. "Energy companies call formula dangerous and untested," and market analysts predict industry upheaval. "This so-called breakthrough is nothing more than irresponsible pseudoscience," declared Maxwell Burton, CEO of Global Energy Solutions, his perfectly pressed suit and stern expression filling the screen. This janitor, with no formal credentials, could destabilize entire economies with his reckless actions. Sam's phone buzzed constantly with calls from unknown numbers. He'd stopped answering days ago. Maya reached over and squeezed his hand as they watched the coverage together. "They're scared," she said softly. "That's all this is." Lila sat cross-legged on the floor, looking up at her father with worried eyes. "Are you in trouble, Daddy?" Sam managed a small smile. "No, sweetie. Sometimes doing the right thing just makes some people uncomfortable." A knock at the door made them all jump. Sam approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. It was Mrs. Chen from next door, holding what looked like a casserole dish. When he opened the door, she beamed at him. "I saw you on the news, Mr. Harper. I always knew you were special. Please take this, my grandmother's recipe." Before he could properly thank her, another neighbor appeared with cookies, and then another with a card. Soon his tiny hallway was filled with familiar faces, all offering support and congratulations. The next morning at the university, Sam pushed his mop cart down the familiar corridors. But something had changed. Professor Williams, who had never so much as nodded in his direction before, stopped mid-stride. "Harper," he said, extending his hand. "That application of quantum mechanics in Section 3, brilliant work." He shook Sam's hand firmly, then hurried off to his lecture. Students who had previously walked past him now stopped to chat. Some asked for photos. Others wanted to discuss the formula, their eyes bright with curiosity and respect. In the teacher's lounge, where Sam usually ate lunch alone, faculty members began pulling up chairs to his table. Dr. Richardson, the department head who had once dismissed him, now leaned forward eagerly. "Sam, we'd like to discuss the possibility of you teaching a special seminar," she said, her tone carefully professional but her expression genuinely interested. "Your perspective could be valuable to our students." The threats still came, of course. Anonymous emails warned of consequences. Dark cars sometimes lingered outside his apartment. But for every threat, there seemed to be twice as many supporters emerging. Maya showed him the online forums where thousands of students and scientists worldwide were defending his work. "Look at this," she said, scrolling through pages of comments. "They're calling you the people's scientist. You're inspiring people, Sam." Even the custodial staff treated him differently. Joe, his supervisor of 10 years, clapped him on the back with pride. "You're still the best floor buffer we've got, Harper," he joked, but his eyes were misty. "Just don't forget us, little people, when you're accepting that Nobel Prize." The most significant change came during his morning walks with Lila to school. Where parents had once huddled in their exclusive groups, barely acknowledging his existence, they now called out warm greetings. "Mr. Harper," Mrs. Thompson waved enthusiastically, breaking away from her usual circle. "We're all so proud to have you in our community. Would you consider speaking at Career Day? The children would love it." Other parents nodded eagerly, gathering around him. Even Mr. Peterson, who had once complained about Sam's shabby appearance at PTA meetings, stepped forward to shake his hand. "My daughter Sarah says you've inspired her to study physics," Mr. Peterson said, looking slightly embarrassed about his past behavior. "She used to think science wasn't for kids from normal families like ours." Lila beamed up at her father, squeezing his hand tighter. The other children crowded around, asking questions about his formula, their eyes wide with admiration. The schoolyard, once a place of quiet isolation for them, had transformed into a warm community embrace. As they reached the school entrance, Ms. Martinez, Lila's teacher, held the door open with a bright smile. "Good morning, Mr. Harper. Good morning, Lila." She gestured to a bulletin board where students had posted newspaper clippings about Sam's formula alongside their own science projects. "You've sparked quite the interest in STEM among our students." Parents who had previously rushed past now lingered, chatting with Sam about his work, asking questions about science, and sharing their own children's newfound interest in mathematics. The morning drop-off had become a moment of connection rather than quiet anonymity. "See you this afternoon, Mr. Harper," several parents called out as they dispersed. Lila hugged him tightly before heading inside. "I told you they'd see how special you are, Daddy," she whispered, her eyes shining with pride. Sam's footsteps echoed through the empty hallway as he made his way to the dean's office, his janitor's uniform feeling especially heavy today. His hands were calloused from years of mopping floors, but they trembled slightly as he reached for the polished brass doorknob. Dean Wallace's secretary nodded at him with an unreadable expression. "Go right in, Mr. Harper. They're waiting for you." They. The word made Sam's stomach twist. Inside the wood-paneled office, Dean Wallace sat behind his massive desk, while several board members occupied the leather chairs around him. Maya stood near the window, her presence unexpected but comforting. Her slight smile gave him hope. "Mr. Harper," Dean Wallace said, gesturing to an empty chair, "please, have a seat." Sam lowered himself carefully, acutely aware of his work clothes among their suits and ties. The smell of lemon cleaning solution still clung to his hands. "We've been following recent events with great interest," Dean Wallace began, shuffling some papers on his desk. His tone was measured, different from his usual bureaucratic detachment. "The release of your formula has caused quite a stir in the scientific community." Sam's throat felt dry. "Yes, sir. I understand if you need to let me go." A murmur rippled through the board members. Dean Wallace raised his eyebrows. "Let you go?" "On the contrary, Mr. Harper. We've called you here with a rather different purpose in mind." The dean leaned forward, placing his reading glasses on the desk. "Your work, controversial as it may be, has brought unprecedented attention to our university. More importantly, it has demonstrated a depth of mathematical understanding that cannot be ignored." Sam glanced at Maya, who now wore an open smile. His confusion must have shown on his face. "The board has been in discussions," Dean Wallace continued, And we've reached a unanimous decision. We would like to offer you an honorary position as an adjunct professor in our mathematics department." The words hit Sam like a physical force. He gripped the arms of his chair, certain he had misheard. I don't have a degree," he managed to say. One of the board members, an elderly woman with silver hair, spoke up. "Sometimes, Mr. Harper, true genius transcends traditional credentials. Your ability to teach, as demonstrated with your daughter and verified by Dr. Ortiz's observations, combined with your mathematical insights, make you uniquely qualified." Dean Wallace nodded. "We're prepared to offer you 3 classes per semester, focusing on practical applications of advanced mathematics. Dr. Ortiz has agreed to mentor you through the transition." Sam turned to Maya again, who stepped forward. "And I've been appointed as the new department chair," she said, her voice warm with pride and satisfaction. It seems they finally recognized that innovation sometimes comes from unexpected places. The reality of the situation slowly sank in. From janitor to professor. From invisible to respected. From cleaning classrooms to teaching in them. The salary, Dean Wallace added, sliding a paper across his desk, will be considerably more than your current position. Though we hope you understand, this may bring additional media attention to the university. Sam picked up the paper with trembling fingers, the numbers blurring before his eyes. It was more money than he'd ever made, even when he was teaching high school. "What about?" Sam gestured vaguely at his uniform. "The janitorial position will be filled by someone else," Dean Wallace said firmly. "You've got more important work to do now, Professor Harper." Professor Harper. The title rang strange in his ears. "We'll need your answer by the end of the week," one of the board members said kindly. "Take some time to think it over." Sam stood up, his legs unsteady. Maya moved to his side, her presence grounding him in the moment. "Thank you," he managed to say. I'll let you know soon." They left the office together, walking in silence down the corridor where Sam had pushed his mop cart countless times. Students passed by, some pointing and whispering, no longer because he was the janitor who solved an impossible equation, but because he was about to become their professor. When they reached the entrance to the math building, Sam stopped and turned to Maya. His voice was thick with emotion as he said, "I never thought I'd be back in a classroom." The morning sun streamed through the classroom windows, casting long rectangles of light across the freshly polished floor. Sam Harper stood in front of the mirror in his new office, adjusting his navy blue tie for what felt like the 100th time. The crisp suit felt foreign after years in his janitor's uniform, but Lila had helped him pick it out, specially for this day. "You look like a real professor, Daddy," she had said at the store, her eyes shining with pride. Now, his fingers trembled slightly as he smoothed down his jacket. The classroom next door was already filling with students, his students. The thought made his heart race. A gentle knock at the door made him turn. Maya stood there, wearing a warm smile. "Ready for your big moment, Professor Harper?" Sam let out a shaky breath. "I never thought I'd hear anyone call me that." "Well, you better get used to it." Maya stepped in and straightened his tie with practiced hands. "Remember, you earned this. Not just with your brilliant mind, but with your heart." The morning bell rang, and Sam's pulse quickened. Maya squeezed his arm reassuringly. "You've got this. Just be yourself." Sam gathered his lecture notes and textbook, taking one final deep breath before stepping into the hallway. The same hallway he had mopped countless times before. But today was different. Today, he wasn't invisible. As he approached the classroom door, he saw Lila already seated in the front row, practically bouncing in her chair with excitement. She had begged to skip school just to watch her father's first lecture, and the principal had made a special exception. The classroom fell silent as Sam entered. Dozens of eyes followed him as he made his way to the front, some curious, others skeptical. He could hear whispers. Everyone knew his story by now. Setting his materials on the desk, Sam turned to face the class. The chalk felt different in his hand now than when he had secretly solved equations late at night. He wrote his name on the board in clear letters, Professor Samuel Harper. "Good morning," he said, his voice steadier than he expected. "I'm sure many of you have heard about me. Yes, I was the janitor who solved the equation that's been in the news. But today, I want to tell you the whole story." Sam moved from behind the desk, letting his shoulders relax. "For years I cleaned these halls while carrying advanced mathematics in my head. I watched brilliant minds at work while keeping my own hidden. I was afraid of judgment, afraid of failure, afraid of standing out." A student raised her hand. "Why did you hide it for so long?" Sam smiled gently. "Sometimes we let others define who we are. We accept the boxes they put us in." He glanced at Lila, who beamed back at him. "But my daughter never saw me as just a janitor. She saw all that I could be." He began walking slowly between the rows of desks. "The equation I solved? It wasn't just about mathematics. It was about believing in yourself when nobody else does. It was about having the courage to step out of the shadows." Sam returned to the front of the room, picking up a piece of chalk. "Today, we're going to start with a problem that many consider impossible." He began writing on the board, his handwriting neat and confident. "But before we dive in, I want you all to remember this. Every single person in this room has hidden potential. Every single one of you has something valuable to contribute." The students leaned forward, notebooks open, pens ready. Even those who had looked skeptical were now watching intently. In the front row, Lila's face glowed with pride as she watched her father command the room with quiet authority. "Mathematics isn't just about numbers," Sam continued, turning back to face the class. "It's about seeing patterns where others see chaos. It's about finding solutions when others have given up. And sometimes," he smiled, "it's about a janitor discovering something that could change the world." He began explaining the first theorem, his voice growing stronger with each word. The students followed along, asking questions, engaging with the material. Sam answered each query with patience and clarity, drawing from years of helping Lila with her homework. As the lecture progressed, Sam felt something shift inside him. The imposter syndrome that had plagued him began to fade. This was where he belonged, not hiding his light, but sharing it with others. Near the end of the class, he solved a complex equation on the board, the same way he used to do late at night when nobody was watching. But this time, he wasn't alone. This time, a room full of bright young minds followed his every step. As he wrote the final solution, the classroom erupted in spontaneous applause. Sam turned, momentarily startled by the response. His eyes found Maya standing in the doorway, her face radiating pride and joy. She had slipped in sometime during the lecture, wanting to witness this moment. The applause continued, led by Lila's enthusiastic clapping. Sam's gaze met Maya's, and in that moment he saw all the faith she had placed in him reflected in her warm smile. She had believed in him when he couldn't believe in himself, had fought for him when others tried to silence him. The evening air held the last warmth of a fading autumn day as Sam and Lila walked along the quiet streets toward home. Street lamps flickered to life one by one, but above them, the first stars were already peeking through the darkening sky. Sam had loosened his tie after his first day of teaching, but he still walked with a new straightness in his shoulders that hadn't been there during his years as a janitor. "You were amazing today, Daddy," Lila said, swinging their joined hands back and forth. She was still wearing her proud daughter smile that hadn't dimmed since his first lecture that morning. "Everyone was listening so carefully when you explained the equations." Sam squeezed her small hand, his heart full. "You know who would have loved to see this day?" he asked softly. Lila's steps slowed. "Mom?" "Yes, sweetheart, your mom." Sam's voice grew thick with emotion. He looked up at the emerging stars, remembering how Sarah used to say that stars were God's nightlights, keeping watch over his children. "She always believed in me, just like you do." They paused at the small park they usually cut through on their way home. The swings moved gently in the evening breeze, and the old oak trees cast long shadows across the grass. Sam led Lila to their favorite bench, the one where he used to read to her when she was smaller. "I think she can see us, Daddy," Lila said, leaning her head against his arm. I think she's one of those stars up there, watching and smiling." Sam wrapped his arm around his daughter's shoulders, fighting back tears. "Thank you, Sarah," he whispered to the heavens, "for believing in me, even when I stopped believing in myself." "Room for one more?" a familiar voice called out. They looked up to see Maya approaching, her satchel slung over her shoulder. She'd changed out of her professional attire into more comfortable clothes, but her eyes still sparkled with the excitement of the day. "Dr. Ortiz," Lila called out happily, scooting over to make space. "Did you see Daddy teach today? Wasn't he wonderful?" Maya sat down beside them, her smile warm in the growing darkness. "He certainly was. Though I have to say, watching him solve equations in a suit instead of holding a mop is going to take some getting used to." They all laughed, and Sam felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. Here, under the stars with his daughter, and the woman who had helped him reclaim his dreams, he felt truly blessed. "You know," Maya said thoughtfully, "I was thinking about what you said in your lecture today, Sam, about how everyone has gifts they're meant to share with the world." "I meant every word," Sam replied, thinking back to the attentive faces of his students. "God gives us all different talents. Sometimes they just take a while to come to light." A cool breeze rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of autumn leaves. Lila huddled closer to her father, and Maya pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders. "What do you think comes next?" Maya asked, her voice soft but hopeful. "Now that the formula is out there, changing things?" Sam thought for a moment, watching more stars appear in the darkening sky. "I think we keep doing what we're meant to do: teach, learn, help others see their own potential." "And solve more equations," Lila added enthusiastically, making both adults chuckle. "Yes, and solve more equations," Sam agreed, ruffling her hair. "But you know what's most important?" He turned to look at his daughter directly, seeing in her eyes the same determination that Sarah had always had. "It's remembering that no one can tell you who you are or what you're capable of. Only God knows that." Maya nodded in agreement. "And sometimes it takes someone else to help us see it in ourselves." The night had settled fully around them now, the park peaceful in its emptiness. The street lamps cast pools of gentle light along the path home, like stepping stones through the darkness. Sam stood up, helping Lila to her feet. Maya rose too, adjusting her satchel. Together, they began walking toward home, their footsteps falling into an easy rhythm. "You know, Lila," Sam said, holding his daughter's hand tight, "they told me to just mop. But God gave me more to give, and so will you." Lila's smile shone bright in the starlight as they walked forward into the night, their hearts full of hope, their steps sure and unafraid. Maya fell into step beside them, and Sam felt a profound sense of peace settle over him. The path ahead was no longer dark or uncertain. Instead, it stretched before them like a road of possibilities, illuminated by faith, love, and the courage to be exactly who they were meant to be. What would you do if you were in their place? Comment your answer below, and let's see how you'd rewrite the ending. If you thought this was just the beginning, you're right. Click through and see where the story takes you next. If you enjoyed the story of Sam Harper, I handpicked the next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.